History is filled with stories of harrowing shipwrecks. The Titanic sank in 1912 after hitting an iceberg. The Lusitania was sunk by a German U-boat in 1915. And the USS Yongala tragically sailed straight into a cyclone in 1911, killing everyone on board. However, some of the most chilling stories from the annals of seafaring involve not shipwrecks, but ghost ships, vessels found sailing on the open ocean without a single soul aboard and no signs of violence or distress. With a shipwreck, tragic as it is, at least we often know what happened. But in the case of a ghost ship, we sometimes have no idea. That said, a few ghost ships do have an easy explanation. The Japanese ship Ryu Unmaru was empty when it was pulled out into the Pacific Ocean by the 2011 earthquake and tsunami that devastated the country. The luxury schooner Bellamika, found adrift but packed with supplies in the Mediterranean in 2006, was likely abandoned by its owner, who wanted to avoid paying taxes on it. And the HMS Resolute, itself part of the search for the doomed 1845 Franklin expedition that lost 129 men, was abandoned in northern Canada in 1854 after it got stuck in the ice. After it was recovered by an American vessel the following year and returned to the British, wood from that ship was later used to make the Resolute desk, used by generations of American presidents up to the present day. But while some ghost ships can be explained, many cannot. Perhaps the most chilling among them is the Mary Celeste. The 280-ton brigantine set sail from New York on November 7, 1872, en route to Genoa, Italy, with some 1,700 barrels of crude alcohol in its hold. It seemed destined to be a perfectly typical voyage. The ship was under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs, a 37-year-old who had spent most of his life at sea, and who had commanded 3 ships previously. Briggs was joined by his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and a small but able crew of 7 men. As captain, Briggs kept a log of the ship's voyage as they sailed east, but on November 25th he made his last entry. At some point after that date, Benjamin Briggs and his wife, his child, and his crew were seemingly just blinked out of existence. At least, that's how it looked to the British ship Dea Gratia, which happened upon the Mary Celeste near the Azores a week and a half later on December 5th, and found the ship completely empty. The ship was undamaged and still contained a 6-month supply of food and water. So what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste? Today, we'll be discussing the eerie theories surrounding that ghost ship, as well as 3 others, the MV Joita, the Carol A. Deering, and the Orang Medan, whose chilling stories continue to haunt the high seas to this day. You're listening to History Uncovered, brought to you by the digital publisher All That's Interesting, where we explore the uncharted corners of the natural world and the world past. I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Kalina Fraga.
And I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Austin Harvey.
Today, we'll be discussing the stories behind some of history's eeriest ghost ships and the theories about what happened to them.
Ooh.
Dun 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 dun.
Spooky. Happy October. Officially the start of spooky season. And we're hitting the waves running. Hitting the waves swimming.
Oh.
Instead of hit the ground running, I was trying to do a little
I was
boat,
like, where are we going with this? Yeah.
little boat pun.
Oh, what do they call like the deck on a boat? I guess we could say hit the deck running right into spooky season. Yeah, basically we're going to both do 2 ghost ships, alternating ghost ships. And I'll start with the one that I sort of set up in the intro, the Mary Celeste, which I think, you might have written about.
I think it might have been this one. It's in there somewhere. I do know about this ship one way or another, like a little bit.
Okay.
Whether I wrote about it or just heard about it, it's probably the most famous one, I would think.
I think possibly, yeah. The Mary Celeste, everything about it at first seemed pretty normal. It left New York City on November 7th, 1872. It was captained by a guy named Benjamin Briggs, who brought along his wife and young daughter. She was 2.
It's a great name.
Benjamin Briggs.
Benjamin Briggs, that's a good name.
Yeah, it's a good name for a captain. It sounds like a Star Trek captain, Benjamin Briggs. Yeah, he had a very small crew, 7 or 8 men. They're going to bring all these barrels of alcohol, crude alcohol, to Genoa, Italy. And he was very experienced. He'd captained 3 other ships before. So there was nothing in his record that seemed shady or off or anything. The ship itself had like if you wanted to look into it, it had sort of a shadier history. Before it was called the Mary Celeste, it was called the Amazon. And the name was changed after a couple of incidents, including the death of its first captain and a collision with another ship in the English Channel. So,
oh boy, yeah, nothing erases history like a name change.
right. That said, like again, nothing seemed that strange about this voyage. Briggs kept a log of their journey. Nothing about the journey seemed unusual or anything. But then on November 25th, he made his last entry, and the entry was just to note where the ship was. Then he stopped writing. And it wasn't until a week and a half later, this other ship, the Dea Gratia, I think I'm saying that right, it's like Latin, found the Mary Celeste adrift. It was captained by this guy named David Morehouse, who was actually a friend of Briggs.
Ooh.
Yeah, they knew each other. They like had lunch or dinner in New York before they both set out on their respective journeys. So he knew the ship. It was at full sail. It was about 400 miles from Portugal's Azore Islands. And Morehouse, again, like knew the guy. So he sent a search party to the vessel, which they found completely empty. No sign of Briggs, his family, or his crew. Very strangely, there was 6 months worth of food and water on board, and the ship appeared pretty like undamaged. They found like a couple things that struck them as odd. There was a missing lifeboat, which seems like a pretty big clue right off the bat. A dismantled pump, and about 3.5 feet of water in the ship's hull, which was not really like that big of a deal. It wasn't enough to sink the ship or put it in any real danger, but that's just what they noticed. So they brought the ship to Gibraltar, where an inquiry took place, and the investigation found some cuts on the ship's bow, but nothing to suggest it had been damaged in a collision or a storm. And they also found a stained sword, which at first was like, oh, it could be blood, but it was just rust. So it's kind of a nothing clue.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah, I know.
There goes that line of inquiry.
Yeah. That would have been a lot more like,
wow, okay.
Yeah,
we
blood.
can start to paint a picture here. There's a really good, for anyone interested in this kind of stuff, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but it just like popped in my mind. There's a really good indie video game called The Return of the Obra Dinn.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire thing is that you're basically this person, like the person doing the inquiry on a ship that was found abandoned or empty of its crew at sea.
Oh.
And you have to go around and find all these different clues. It's very interesting. So if you're if you're a ship head, you haven't heard of this game, it's pretty fun.
It does sound interesting. That's the kind of game. My brother is not really a big game person, but he would like love a game like that, I bet.
It's like
because he loves
kind of like
ships.
classic like Myst type of like mystery point and click kind of thing.
Well, the investigators did take a close look, like in the game, at the ship, and one of them at least thought that possibly Morehouse and Briggs had teamed up to defraud the insurance company, because nautical law stated that the Mary Celeste now belonged to Morehouse because he'd recovered it at sea. This investigator thought that maybe Briggs had killed the crew and hidden in Morehouse's hold. This theory didn't make a whole lot of sense. Briggs had property shares in the Mary Celeste. He wouldn't make much money from defrauding his insurers. And like, I don't know, it's kind of a stretch that this guy who had no history of violence would kill 7 people. And
right. His entire crew. I feel like if you were going to sort of the idea that there was like a shipwreck, because you don't just abandon the ship and then get insurance money if the ship's in condition to be.
Well, it's like because Morehouse now owned the ship. So like.
So he could just sell it, basically.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if it's insurance fraud and there's not a lot of damage to the ship, what's your claim then? Like.
Yeah, I don't know. Some kind of fraud anyway. But it wasn't, again, didn't seem like that likely.
Right.
Other theories were like maybe the crew had gotten drunk on the ship's alcohol and mutinied, but again, there's like no signs of violence really on the vessel. Or
no real indication that there would even be a mutiny, because he didn't write about infighting, he didn't write about tensions.
Right, there was nothing like leading up to the fact that would hint at that. 9 of the 1,700 barrels of alcohol on the ship were empty, but they thought this was more likely from a leak than to like theft. Other theories, again, like kind of circled back to like something violent happened. Pirates, maybe. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of Sherlock Holmes at one point wrote a short story about the Mary Celeste, in which he floated the idea that the ship's crew had been killed by like an ex-slave seeking vengeance. This is an interesting that
is interesting
theory. But again, like there's no evidence that anything violent happened.
Right, and no signs of damage to the ship really either, which like I don't imagine pirates were very calm or discreet when they pirated.
Right. And you think that maybe they would have like taken the ship? Like, didn't they often like commandeer ships that they...
Yeah, or some of the more than 9 barrels of alcohol. Which
Right.
the barrels were still there. It was just empty.
Yeah,
If you're
exactly.
going to steal stuff from a ship transporting alcohol, you're going to steal probably the alcohol.
That's a good point. Yeah, pirates, I think, like alcohol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty characteristic of them.
Yeah. So if nothing violent happened, then like what happened? So other theories have been that okay, there's a lifeboat missing. Briggs and the others must have evacuated the ship for some reason. One theory is that a barrel of alcohol might have like swelled in the heat and then exploded and blasted out the ship's hatch, but it might have scared the crew into evacuating. Although the hatch was still secure when the ship was found, so this is not like the best theory. Another possibility is that a couple of different factors led Briggs just to panic. His chronometer was faulty, which meant that the ship was more than 100 miles off course when it was abandoned. Plus, it had this clogged onboard pump, which seemed to be the reason why there'd been like this flooding in the hull. And while this didn't pose an immediate danger, the theory goes that if Briggs didn't know where the ship was, he might have feared that the vessel would sink before they could reach land. So, kind of like the main theory is that he and his crew boarded a lifeboat and set sail for the Santa Maria, which is one of the Azore Islands, which he had spotted and written about November 25th. And then their lifeboat capsized and all were lost at sea.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang. And that does, frankly, seem like the most likely theory.
It does. I mean, I do wonder, I guess it's hard. It's like impossible to verify this now, but did anything like wash up on these islands, like a boat or bodies or skeletons?
Right.
Like they must have, I guess they were pretty far away still. Like the ship was found hundreds of miles from the Azores, but.
Right. But it was what, 400 miles off course when it was found? 400 miles away from the Azores. So even if it was 100 miles off course, that's still like 300 miles that they were like potentially trying to. Well, I guess the boat drifted more.
The boat drifted.
The water does move boats.
It seems most likely that he just was like, you know what, the ship seems to be flooding and there's land and let's just try to go there. But unclear because no one obviously was ever found from this ship. I guess no bodies were found. Lifeboat was never found.
Yeah, and I guess if you're in that much of a panic, you're not going to take the time to write like ship flooding, we're leaving, and leave your log.
And maybe you would think like there's no point because the ship's going to sink.
That true.
Yeah, but it does seem a little bit surprising that someone who's as experienced as him would panic like this.
Yeah, maybe his family being on board would have contributed to that. Like, oh no, like normally I would be the captain who goes down with his ship, but like my children.
Yeah.
Or my child and my wife or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. But something happened and like they made some decision and or maybe something else happened. Who knows?
Right.
But that's the Mary Celeste.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're kind of going more into the history than the paranormal part, but we should clarify the reason these are called ghost ships is that people do reportedly still see them on the ocean. So the Mary Celeste is, I think, very frequently like cited as being seen still.
Oh, really? Oh, creepy.
Yeah. I've definitely heard of people being like, yeah, and I saw the ghost of the Mary Celeste. And I was like, yeah, but pretty sure the boat like made it back to land. So I don't.
Maybe there's like an alternate reality where something else happened to the Mary Celeste. And that's what they're seeing. It's like the shadow or the echo of the ship.
Yeah. I always think the idea of a ghost ship's really interesting. Because, well, I guess sometimes you do it in more modern movies, but no one takes it seriously. Like there's never like, and then I saw my ghost Cadillac drive by with my grandfather's spirit still in it. It's like, I don't know why boats are weird. We talk about them like they're women. Everyone's like,
right.
She a beauty.
Sank.
Yeah, she sank.
Yeah,
and then she also still haunts the ocean. Good. There's no ghost planes. You know what I mean?
I think ships in like the ocean are just like kind of not like creepy, but the ocean is scary. And like stuff that can happen in the ocean is like kind of scary. And ships are part of that.
I think the fog also, or like the mists over the ocean, plays tricks on people's minds in a way that doesn't happen elsewhere.
Yeah, like all sorts of things I think can play tricks on your mind, like seals, I think being mistaken for sirens, or I just finished Moby Dick, so there's also like the danger of like stuff like whaling and et cetera, sharks.
Fair point. The ocean is a scary place. I think we've said that many times before. I have in my personal life, I know for sure.
I would never. I can't believe people used to go on these like month-long voyages, especially when it was like, well, you probably will survive, but like there's a chance that you won't and you'll drown at sea. I'm not sure I'd be brave enough to like.
Yeah, but you come back and you get glory and riches.
And
maybe you get to name a place.
Maybe. Or you'll drown at sea.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing with cruises. I would never go on a cruise.
I don't think I would go on. I might go on like a small cruise, like a small boat to like Alaska or something, or like the rivers of France, but not like a big Caribbean cruise or anything like that.
No way. I don't want to be on a boat that long and I'd be the person who falls off. But a stupid thing, like I slip on a banana peel and it's kind of funny until like it's not.
Right. Until you're plummeting to the open ocean. I can't remember if we've done, I know we did an article on cruise ship disappearances, but I can't remember if we also did a podcast on it.
I don't know if we've generally broadly talked about it. I know we did an episode on Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance, which was on a cruise ship.
Right.
So yeah, we've talked around it, but I don't think we've ever covered cruise disasters specifically.
Well, we do have an article on it, and there's like a disturbing number of disappearances on cruise ships. So.
Yeah, and also other things that go wrong. Like that time there was a Royal Caribbean cruise or something that their toilets broke.
Ugh.
And it became this like very unsanitary disaster.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Or like during COVID, like no, they couldn't dock anywhere, so they were like stranded in the ocean. No one would take
terrible.
them.
Sounds terrible. Well, anyway, speaking of other disasters at sea, this next ghost ship we got is the MV Joyita. It's quite a fun name to say.
It has a fun name.
Yeah. Little history of the boat. It was built in 1931 by Wilmington Boat Works in Los Angeles as a luxury yacht for the film director Roland West. He gave it the name Joyita, which means little jewel in Spanish. Sorry if my Spanish pronunciation is not wrong. It might be Joyita.
I was going to say, I think it's
probably
different J, but
that ship was then acquired by the U.S. Navy in 1941 for service in World War II, where it mostly patrolled around Hawaii. Suffered some damage 2 years later, 1943, and was then repaired using lower quality / newer materials. Post-war, it was sold and refitted, where it was given cork lining to improve its buoyancy, as well as some refrigeration equipment. After that, the ownership changed hands multiple times until 1952, when it was operated by Captain Thomas H. Dusty Miller, a British-born man living in Samoa. So quite a long history already.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't think you would ever acquisition a yacht for war service. They seem like tailor-made for completely different purposes.
Well, it's interesting. This week I wrote about the Titanic sister ship, the Britannic, and this was a ship built for luxury that was used as a hospital ship during World War I.
Okay, well that makes a little bit more sense though, because they'd have like bunking and Though I guess this was just a patrol vehicle, but still, I'd imagine you'd have to outfit it somehow.
Probably make some adjustments to it. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Its final voyage departed from Apia Harbor in Samoa, bound for the Tokelau Islands on October 3rd, 1955. That voyage was actually delayed, though. It was meant to leave at noontide the previous day. But the port engine's clutch failed, and so they ultimately ended up just leaving with only one engine functional, which to me already feels like a mistake.
Yeah, bad omen.
There were 25 people on board, so a little bit more than the Mary Celeste. That included 16 crew and 9 passengers. I couldn't find any names, weirdly, but I found details about the passengers. One was a doctor who was en route to perform an amputation, a government official, 2 children, a copra buyer, and then 2 pharmacists with urgently needed medical supplies. So wherever they were heading in the Tokelau Islands, clearly there was some sort of medical necessity to be there.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before they were reported overdue. I don't actually know how long of a journey that is, but they were reported overdue by October 6th.
Okay, so, just a couple of days into the voyage.
So seemingly it's supposed to be a fairly quick journey, regardless. It was not found until November 10th, roughly 5 weeks after it left, 600 miles west of its scheduled route. This ship was not in as good condition. It was listing heavily. Its port deck rail was awash. It was partially submerged. The lower decks were flooded, but that cork lining kept it afloat. The starboard engine was covered by mattresses, and the port engine's clutch was partially disassembled. Weirdly, the radio was set tuned to 2,182 kilohertz, which is the international distress signal. But there was a break in the cable, and then it was painted over so that you couldn't tell, basically, and it limited the range of this radio frequency to 2 miles.
Oh, mysterious, like sabotage.
It seems like it. The life rafts and the dinghy were missing, but there wouldn't have been enough life jackets for everyone on board. There was also damage to the superstructure. The flying bridge was smashed. Windows were broken in the deck house. The canvas awning was rigged behind the bridge. And on deck, they found a doctor's bag with blood-stained bandages and medical equipment used, but not a single person. All of the electric clocks also stopped at 10:25 p.m.
Creepy.
And then looking at the fuel usage, they determined that the ship had traveled like 243 miles before being abandoned.
Wow. Sounds like something like definitely did happen on this ship, unlike the last one.
Something definitely happened. That inquiry found a couple interesting things. They found that it was in a poor state of repair, which, yeah. They found the cause of the flooding was a fractured or corroded pipe in the raw seawater cooling circuit on the port auxiliary engine. The bilge pumps were blocked or unserviceable. There were no watertight bulkheads or subdivisions on the lower decks to stop flooding. At the same time, the ship's design made it virtually unsinkable because of the cork lining, and then there were a bunch of empty fuel drums that would have also helped keep it afloat. They, not officially, but they criticized the captain for reckless departure with one engine, also allowing lapsed license, inadequate safety equipment, and a non-working radio.
Yeah, that seems all pretty bad.
Lapsed license, going out without an engine, the radio not working, abandoning ship when it was still buoyant, which is weird.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't sinking. It was listing, but wasn't sinking. They ultimately determined that the disappearance of the passengers and the crew was inexplicable on the evidence submitted and could not determine why people abandoned a ship that remained afloat.
Wow.
There's some theories. I don't know which one I lean towards. The first is that the captain might have been injured or incapacitated somehow, which would have caused panic, a breakdown of order. Doesn't really explain the missing lifeboats or the absence of bodies. Does kind of explain maybe why the bandages were used or whatever.
I guess if the captain died, they might have just thrown him overboard. Like they don't want the body there or something, and then
right. Bloody bandages though would be like, well, how'd he die then?
Right. Right. Yeah. Good question.
You don't just start bleeding.
Yeah. He could have had a terrible nosebleed, walked into a wall. But you're right. It sounds very sinister.
The next theory that kind of would maybe answer some of those questions is mutiny or crew conflict. This time there were tensions reported between the first mate, Chuck Simpson, and Captain Miller. But even then, it would be really, really risky to abandon a seaworthy vessel for small rafts. They did not find navigation equipment on the ship itself, which means whoever left the ship took navigation equipment with them.
Which would make sense if someone got into a lifeboat. They would have wanted to have that with them.
Right. But it just adds another, ooh, weird.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's also really no motive for, a little bit of tension. It's a short journey. Seems kind of silly to be let's kill the captain and take the ship.
Yeah, unless he went insane or something.
Yeah, he got that classic sea madness.
Exactly.
After just one day.
Possibly.
There's always, I think this is going to be probably a recurring theme, piracy or some sort of external attack, which would explain some of the missing cargo and damage. They also reported finding knives that said they were made in Japan, but there's no evidence of violence other than the blood-stained bandages, and there's obviously no witnesses.
It seems like it would make sense for them to have knives from Japan if they're in the Pacific and...
Right. Yeah. And also post-war, and it was used in the war, and maybe they...
Yeah.
I don't think that's that... it's not like the knives were bloody. They just found some knives. The other very common theory that will probably be across the board, insurance fraud. In this case, the captain did have debts, which sinks at a possible motive. It being an unsinkable vessel makes it really hard for him to commit fraud.
But it sounds like maybe he tried. I don't know, someone tried to sink the ship perhaps and...
Maybe.
Couldn't sink.
Maybe. But then there's the whole issue with the radio. If you're going to try and commit fraud, you'd probably want to make sure your radio is working.
Yeah.
So that you can actually call for help. And also doesn't fully explain the missing people, because if the ship wasn't going to sink, they didn't need to abandon it.
And be pretty cold-blooded to be I have a crew and passengers of 25, 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to...
And some of them are doctors and a government official.
And children. Yeah.
So it's not like these are unimportant.
Right.
Not that any... You shouldn't sacrifice anybody for an insurance scheme. But these are people who are other people are desperately relying on them.
Yeah, they're going to notice that they're missing and
Right. And the last theory is just panic from flooding because of that corroded pipe. And maybe they just thought, oh, we only have one engine. The pipe burst. It's going to flood. We got to abandon ship.
Huh. What I'm learning here is if your ship starts flooding, don't abandon ship.
Yeah.
Wait a little while and see what happens.
Don't immediately abandon it. Give it a minute.
Yeah.
It took the Titanic quite a while to fully sink.
I guess so. It
took
was like
a
an
couple
hour.
hours. Was it
a
only
couple
like an hour?
hours. I feel like we both should know this because we wrote so much about the Titanic.
Let's find out real quick. Let's double check.
I think it was like 2 hours because I think it started sinking at like 11. I want to say 11:40, and I think it was sunk by like 2 a.m.
You are right. Yeah, 11:40 to 2:20. So 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Wow. That's almost 3 hours. That's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, enough time for you to like, I'll chill for a minute.
Get on a lifeboat.
Yeah. Or maybe just even be like, let's just see. Let's give it 30 minutes and see.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, again, we don't know what happened. It's an inexplicable mystery so far. But I think this one's more obvious that something happened on board.
Well, just to have like the blood and everything, like the Mary Celeste, I think what's eerie about that is that there was just no evidence at all.
Right.
Or not at all, but like there wasn't a clear sign of what had happened on board the ship. And this one, like clearly something had happened.
Something weird went down.
A couple things were like very off, creepy in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something really scary about just being like, wow, we found the ship and it seems like everyone vanished without a trace.
Oh, and here are some bloody bandages and some signs of possible sabotage. Yeah.
The clock still being stopped at 10:25, I think, is really interesting as well.
Mm.
That led to a lot of like paranormal theory. I didn't include them on this, but
could that also be from like lightning strikes or something? Could do that,
or if the engine lost power, I'd imagine that would probably short circuit the equipment. So
it is creepy when when watches or clocks are stopped. It does often seem like paranormal coded.
Yeah, I mean, people throw out everything from like ghosts or sea monsters or alien abduction. And it's like, I don't know, probably not. Probably not in this case.
But we'll never know, I guess.
We'll never know.
The next one is kind of in between, I think, the first two in terms of evidence and whatnot. But yeah, so the Carol A. Deering, its story begins in August 1920. At that time, it was very new. It had been built in 1919 with all the newest bells and whistles, steam heat, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time it went on this fateful voyage, it had already made several other voyages between Virginia and South America. And that summer, it was going to bring some coal from Virginia to Brazil. A couple things happened right away that set the ship up for something. The normal captain dropped out of the voyage. His son was the first mate. He also dropped out of the voyage.
Oh, boy.
And they were replaced with a captain named Willis B. Wormel and a first mate named Charles B. McClellan.
Not a good name, Wormel. Mm-mm. Sorry to anyone Wormel out there, but
he might be the better of the two. But
true, not as good as Briggs though.
Briggs still wins. Agreed. These two guys were commanding a crew of 10, mostly men from Denmark.
That's interesting.
But
what a weird crew from Virginia to South America, and you have a bunch of Danish people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed. Odd, but the Wormel and McClellan very quickly started butting heads during the voyage. And when they arrived in Barbados in January 1921, on their way back to Virginia, apparently McClellan shouted at Wormel, "I'll kill you before it's over, old man."
Oh.
So things had clearly grown tense between the two during the voyage. In Barbados, they were there. The ship was there, I guess, for a couple of days or something. Wormel described McClellan as habitually drunk and claimed he treated the crew brutally.
Oof.
And when a guy he was talking to, maybe a friend at a bar, asked if he was worried about the crew mutinying. If he was worried about there being a mutiny among the crew, not sure if that's a verb or not, but he shrugged off concerns. Although McClellan was still pretty fired up, and he was overheard saying, "I'll get the captain before we get back to Norfolk. I will."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He's really like not making a case for himself here.
No, he was so disorderly that he was thrown in jail, and kind of inexplicably, Wormel bailed him out and helped him.
Maybe it was like
get back on the ship.
Show of good faith or something. Like, hey, let's just get back together, and you don't want to leave your first mate stuck in Barbados.
Yeah, I guess not.
Kind of a bad look for
maybe
you.
He should have. On January 9th, 1921, the ship sailed from Barbados toward Virginia, and Wormel continued to update the ship's log until January 23rd. At that point, the handwriting in the ship's log changed. So we don't really know what happened to Wormel at that point.
I have a couple guesses.
Yeah. On January 29th, the ship was spotted by a watchman at Cape Lookout Lightship. The crew apparently was milling around on deck, and a man who the watchman didn't think seemed to be an officer told him that the ship had lost its anchors, which is all kind of like strange.
Yeah. Not an easy thing to lose.
No. And like, what? Like how? At around 5:45 p.m. on January 30th, the next day, the ship was spotted again by the SS Lake Elon, who thought that the Deering was headed on a strange course. And then on January 31st, the ship was found aground at Cape Hatteras in the Outer Banks. The sails were up, but the weather was so rough that no one could reach the ship for a couple of days. When they did, they found that the ship was abandoned. The crew's personal belongings, the ship's navigational equipment, some of its papers, its lifeboats, and its anchors were all missing. Strangely, there was prepared food in the galleys if the crew had been about to eat, but there was no one on board, although they did find a 6-toed cat.
A 6-toed cat? Like it had 6 toes on one paw?
This is like the Hemingway cats all have 6 toes. There's a term for it.
Whoa, wait. I've never heard of a 6-toed cat.
It's like a genetic thing. And like, yeah, all the cats at the Hemingway place in Key West are all 6-toed cats.
That's, ew. Ew, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like the way that looks at all. Wow. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
Anyway, so what happened to the Carroll A. Deering? Again, there are a couple of theories about it. A lot of these don't make a whole lot of sense. One of the theories at the time was that the U.S. was in the midst of its, like, quote-unquote, first Red Scare because the Russian Revolution had begun and, like, you know, the communism was like, scary. So one theory was, like, the ship had been taken over by the Bolsheviks. So this didn't make a whole lot of sense because why would the Bolshevik pirates kidnap the crew and leave behind the ship and its valuables and everything?
Right. And also, like, the Bolsheviks didn't really have beef with an American captain and some Danish crew.
Like, what were they even doing, like, off the coast of Virginia? Like, yeah.
Right.
Similarly, there was an idea that maybe they were attacked by bootleggers, but again, why?
Yeah, they were carrying coal, right? So not even
because they dropped off their coal. I mean, they could have exchanged it for something else.
Right. Maybe bootleggers didn't know. They just saw a ship coming in and were like, oh, but
maybe people thought maybe a hurricane happened, but the ship was last seen sailing away from bad weather. The ship did pass through the Bermuda Triangle, so that's, I guess, a possibility. But myths about the Bermuda Triangle wouldn't start for another 40 years, which doesn't, I mean, if you believe in the Bermuda Triangle, I guess it always existed. But, like, kind of stories about it didn't really come out until half a century later.
Well, I ask you this to that. Did the Bermuda Triangle exist before Bermuda existed? Like, before, like, when we were Pangea?
I don't know.
Yeah. Just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. I don't know.
Did I just debunk the whole myth?
Bermuda Triangle. I think we have an article on that too.
Oh, we do. The Bermuda Triangle, the Alaska Triangle.
All the triangles.
I'm sure the Bermuda Triangle comes up a bunch of times because Amelia Earhart's connected to it. And yeah, a lot of stuff.
In the end, with this ship, it seems most likely that some kind of mutiny did take place. And that when the surviving crew tried to escape, they were swamped by the heavy waves, pulled out into deep water, and drowned. Yeah. But it is strange. It's like, again, these guys were all, well, I don't know how experienced they were, but I don't think any of them were, like, new to this.
Right.
I think they would have planned their escape better, or I don't know, unclear. Or maybe they did escape and vanished into the wind.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that I think we're just assuming that they died, but, like, there's a chance they didn't as well.
Right.
It's a lot easier to disappear and pretend to be a different person back in the 1920s.
Definitely. And who knows? I mean, who knows what happened when the ship, like, wasn't sighted? They could have gotten on a different ship.
Right. And you mentioned that there was bad weather that prevented people from getting to it for a few days. And then the change of handwriting, the people dancing around on the deck, and then hey, we lost our anchors, so if we start to approach land, we can't really drop our anchors.
It's a lot of odd stuff. Yeah.
And if the first mate, who I'm assuming mutinied and then would have become the de facto captain at that point.
Yeah, right.
If he was a, like, notorious drunk and it was sailing through bad weather and everyone else was down, he was like, go prepare the meal for this evening. I'll get us. And then he crashes. It's a DUI.
Yeah, that's true.
A BUI, a boating under the influence.
I mean, it's also interesting that the captain said that the first mate was, like, really cruel to the crew.
Yeah.
So, like, the first mate could have killed the captain, and then the crew could have killed the first mate because they, like, hated him.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
But we don't know. We don't know. A mystery.
And yet we have one more mystery to talk about. And this one is really interesting because not only is it a ghost ship, we don't even know if it was ever a ship. This is the Orang Medan, or Orang Medan. I'll keep my A pronunciations similar there. This is an alleged Dutch freighter named the Orang Medan, or the Man from Medan. But no official records exist in shipping registries. The story first surfaced after the Second World War, with purported events said to occur around 1947 or 1948 in the Strait of Malacca. The first reports came from Dutch and Indonesian newspapers and then later appeared in U.S. Coast Guard publications. One article was called Mystery of the Orang Medan and was published in the Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council.
That seems official.
It seems kind of official. I don't know if the initial sources were anything official or if they were more of that National Enquirer level of like Bat Boy spotted on subway, ghost ship seen in Strait of Malacca sort of
right,
deal.
Yeah. Got it.
Here's what might have happened. Multiple ships in the Strait of Malacca, including the American vessel Silver Star, allegedly received a Morse code SOS. The message they received was all officers, including the captain, dead, lying in chart room and on bridge, possibly whole crew dead. And then a final garbled message that said, I die. Coordinates supposedly pointed to the waters south of Malaysia. The Silver Star reportedly located the drifting freighter. And according to the boarding party's account, they found all the crew and officers dead, sprawled across the decks and inside compartments. Their bodies were described with their arms outstretched, faces frozen in terror or agony, with no visible wounds or injuries. The ship's dog was also found dead, and they said that below decks felt unnaturally cold.
Oh, ghosts.
Ghost ship. The Silver Star crew attempted to salvage and tow, and then they said after the lines were secured, smoke or fire was reported in the Orang Medan's cargo hold, forcing them to evacuate, after which the ship exploded, sank rapidly, and was lost.
Wow. Gosh.
And no wreckage survived, apparently.
Wow.
We'll go over the theories. Again, we don't even know if this was a real ship.
Yeah.
But if it were, here's what might have happened. Chemicals on board. They were maybe transporting some hazardous materials that caused an explosion that suddenly went off. Or maybe a gas leak killed the crew and then caused the explosion. Plausible if the ship exists.
Because they had no wounds. So like a gas leak sort of makes sense.
And usually when you die of like gas inhalation or whatever, it's not a very people don't often die in agony. It's more like you fall asleep.
But if you saw everyone around you dropping dead, maybe you'd be terrified.
I guess I'm only talking about carbon monoxide as well. I don't know, maybe other gases would make you sort of be like choking and writhing.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Which is funny because actually the next theory is carbon monoxide poisoning. So I guess these kind of go hand in hand. Regardless, there's no official record of cargo because there's no official record of the ship. So make that make sense. Same thing. Carbon monoxide poisoning, maybe a faulty boiler system or something would explain the death without injury, but it's less consistent with this sort of terror on their faces expression. Lots of paranormal ones. Ghosts, attacked by ghost pirates, ghosts on board killing the crew. I don't know, but this is me just spitballing of what ghosts would. I don't know. It's during World War II. Ghosts of enemy soldiers, whatever. Ghost of some kind. UFOs.
Pirate ghosts.
Ghost pirates. Yeah, UFOs. I don't know. If the crew were found on board, seems weird for UFO thing because normally alien abduction involves abduction and not just murder. Someone blamed a sea monster. I don't think that makes any sense because as the resident Kraken expert, the big squid was not known for being small and sneaking in and killing people one by one. It was more like, I'm going to eat the whole ship.
Yeah. It could have been a different sea monster. Don't sirens kill men?
Yeah, but I think it's usually we're going to sing a song, seduce them into crashing their boat.
Oh, or drown them.
Or drown them or something. Not often hey, let's get the sirens on board.
Yeah.
And then they abandon ship. Regardless, there's no evidence for any of this. The most likely theory is that it's a hoax, that the entire incident was fabricated because, again, there's no official registration of Orang Medan. The reports are inconsistent with how they refer to dates and locations. I used the example that the Silver Star rescued them, but other reports from other countries would have said a boat from their country was the one to find it. So, like, an Indonesian newspaper would have been like, and one of our boats came on board, and this is what the crew said. And then, like, no one ever followed up on that with any of the crew.
It's like a game of telephone, basically.
Yeah. Or just sort of like a legend that spread through some sort of like sensational magazines that were like, ooh, isn't this an interesting story? And you want to be like you were like, oh, that publication earlier sounds kind of credible. So did the Midland Valley Register, which we talked about last episode or two, whenever we did the Snallygaster.
Oh, yeah. It was
just a local newspaper reporting. So most people were probably like, yeah, they're a credible publication. And they're literally reporting on a monster. So
yeah, that's a good point.
There was a little bit less media accountability back then.
I like the story, though. I like how they tried to like tow the ship and then it just exploded and was completely destroyed.
Yeah, I think as far as a story goes, like a scary story goes, this is probably the scariest one because it's like, yeah, we found the only one where they found the crew.
Yeah.
And they're all dead on board and they look horrified of something. And you're like, what killed them? What scared them? I mean, it's a great, but it's almost too good of a scary story to be real. And this was also used, this story specifically was the premise of a different video game called Man from Medan. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fictional story, but like, I don't think it happened.
I mean, I could see something similar happening that just, snowballed into something else every time it was told and became kind of this like legend at sea.
Yeah. It could have even been like we found an abandoned ship or we found a somewhat damaged ship. We tried to tow it and then it blew up.
Yeah.
And then like an old fisherman's tale becomes like, oh, well, I heard the crew were still on it.
You're right. Yeah. And they all had expressions of terror on their
you
faces.
Idiot. No, yeah, the crew were still on it, but the crew were already dead.
Yeah.
People just sitting in bars, one-upping each other because they had nothing better to do.
Very possible.
Pretty common. So
before the iPhone, people one-upped each other at bars.
Yeah. We used to have to distract ourselves differently with creative writing.
I was thinking the other day about when I was a kid on the school bus. I would like count like how many pieces of like trash I would see out the window. And I was like, that was so like, I didn't have a phone to look at. Like, I was just like, I was 8. I was just like looking out the window and like counting. And
yeah, I used to look up at the trees and pretend that I was watching Spider-Man swing through them. That was mine.
See, we had to use our minds.
We were better. Things were better.
Things were better. Yeah, these are all creepy. I kind of like how they sort of, I didn't do this purposely, but they kind of nicely escalated.
Yeah, it was a very nice serendipitous.
It was good to end on this one. It was just like the weirdest.
It would have been weird if we'd started with this one. Where do we go from here?
Start with a bang, I guess. But yeah, very, very creepy.
That one is my favorite story for sure. But it's probably like completely made up.
It is a good story. I wish there was like a little bit more evidence about it, but maybe that's what makes it so great.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like something that would have spread among sailors first.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Like, especially like World War II, because it came about in the 40s. So like, soldiers returning home who were like, oh, they're, like, oh my God, what was war like? What did you see? And like, maybe you didn't see that much action, and someone else next to you is like, they're like, I was on the front lines in Okinawa, and you're like, I saw a ghost ship.
I saw a ghost ship, and they were all dead.
And now everyone in the room's turning their attention towards that guy.
Right? Yeah, maybe so.
Who knows?
Well, I'm looking at the calendar. The next episode is Mignonette Cannibalism, which I have no idea what that is, but I guess I'll find out.
Okay. How do you Mignonette? Like minion? Oh, with a G.
Yeah.
I was about to look up like a female minion.
Female minion cannibal.
Oh, this is about another shipwreck of a yacht called the Mignonette. And then some cannibalism happened, and it led to a big criminal case in England.
Yeah, but that's coming up. In the meantime, as you wait on the edge of your seat for that, you can also go to the website, allthisinteresting.com. where we publish stories all the time.
And read about all these ghost ships.
That's right. We have an article, like an umbrella article on ghost ships, plural, which includes these and several others. And then a couple of these 4, if not all 4 of them, also have their own article. Maybe 3 out of the 4 do.
Yes. Yeah. Our big blanket article covers 15, so 11 more than what we talked about here.
Yes. Alongside the website, you can also stay up to date with what we're doing, what we're publishing by signing up for the newsletter, which you can do at allthat'sinteresting.com/sign up, or you can become a member at allthat'sinteresting.com/membership.
Yes, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a nice review or a star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Helps us out a lot. Helps us keep doing what we're doing. If you have any suggestions for what you'd like to hear us talk about, by sending that email to podcast@allthat'sinteresting.com. You could also give us a call at
929-526-3029. Leave a voicemail there.
Yeah, we always be sure to listen to those and check the email inbox. And we've gotten a lot of good suggestions for episodes from there. So
we have, yeah.
Yeah, always fun to hear what people have to say. You can also follow us on social media, pretty much every platform at this point. Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. TikTok's got some weird news going on, so we'll see about that.
Oh, there's American TikTok, right? Coming up.
Yeah. Rupert Murdoch's TikTok.
Great. We'll be on that soon.
Be there. We'll see you there. Meet you there. We'll see how that algorithm treats us.
Yeah.
But be sure to give us a follow if you want to stay up. We always post fun reels and other things there as well. So
yeah, lots of cool, fun places to consume our content for sure. And we'll be back in 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, with this Mignonette cannibalism story. Should be interesting. Love a good cannibalism story. So
do love a good cannibalism story.
Welcome to spooky season.
Yeah, the spooky season occupied by many shipwrecks.
Yeah. Yeah, we're leaning into the terrifying open ocean theme, I guess.
The spooky season brought to you by the ocean.